The bell tolls. The midnight hour is upon us. It's time once again for two internet strangers to discuss the good and evil of the horror genre. So sit back, relax, and enjoy the terror within the Hallow-Holics Anonymous podcast.
I can't believe it's already been 6 months since nuclear war started, thrusting us into a terrible dystopian war of eternal winter.
Yeah, dude, who'd have thought something as simple as would have started World War III?
Oh man, there's only one can of beans left. The responsible thing to do would be for us to share it.
Or we could record a podcast episode and secretly plan to backstab each other for dibs on the can opener.
Oh, sounds good to me.
I'm Corey.
I'm Maddy.
And this is Hallow-Holics Anonymous, a show dedicated to all things horror and occasionally Halloween.
You like how I gave you the opportunity to say that this time?
Yeah, I felt incredibly proud. I feel like I've been given a promotion.
What did we tell ourselves, Corey? No more downers?
No more Oh, but I love those.
Oh, didn't we agree, like, usually one lighthearted and one super dark movie if we were going to go super dark again?
Yeah, but, oh yeah, I guess, well, your movie's complicated. Turkey shoot, oh, you know what, we can't call it turkey shoot, it's pronounced turkey shoot. Gotta call it turkey shoot.
It is Australian, so maybe turkey shoot.
Turkey shoot.
Turkey shoot.
Turkey shoot. This is fucking embarrassing, and I'm leaving it in. Okay, so we'll get to this, but I ran the gauntlet of, like, countries this movie may have been made in, but we'll talk about that when we get to it.
So in this episode, we decided to focus on dystopian horror.
Horror's well, with yours, horror is a little bit of a loose definition, although...
I think if a wolf creature eats your toes, it is automatically a horror film.
Maddy, your movie has a toe-eating wolf man. That was amazing and random. And it's going to come up again because I'm completely fixated on that. Dystopian film paints a world that is often given in to a fascist government where the rich and powerful control everything and are greatly outnumbered by the poor, who are kept in check in a variety of ways. Sometimes it's as something as stupid as forcing kids to run around in a maze, or forcing the prettiest of the poor kids to kill each other in battle royale competitions. See what I did there?
Yeah, I gotcha.
I'm clever. These worlds, to one extent or another, often reflect our own. Whether it's wealthy businessmen and politicians making all the decisions while those of us on the lower end of the class spectrum can do very little about it, or being in a constant state of war with questionable reasons why and no end in sight. That one, I think, actually is pretty important, because you've got the most famous version of that, 1984, where Europa and Eurasia are in this constant state of war, and that's sort of where we've been since 9/11.
Or a film like Brazil, where we become emotionally numb to daily terrorist activity around us, even if the mall we're at or the place we work constantly has, like, explosions and bombs going off.
Yeah, exactly. Like, it's just something that happens now, and that's insane. Like, we're living in a lot of these dystopian movies, and that's, I think, why I find some of them so scary.
This is the perfect time, actually, to be primed for some really good dystopian horror, if someone takes the reins.
Oh, yeah, no doubt. It would, and I'll talk about it when we get to my movie, but this is the perfect time for a Hardware 2, which the script is out there, but we'll get to that. So, speaking of, world building is very important to these films, sometimes to the detriment of the film itself, which I will get to in my movies, certainly. I'm often more interested in the world outside of our characters' experiences rather than the story in front of me. That's real big in movies like Hardware, Beyond Thunderdome, if you want to count that. I guess it's sort of dystopian because there are tribal cultures starting to rebuild. The world itself is a hell of a lot more interesting than what we're watching, even though...
the remake of Time Machine.
Yeah, that's a good example too. I forgot about that. That is that great scene of the moon in pieces. I love that. So the genre has existed almost as long as film itself, 1922's Dr. Mabuse the Gambler and 1927's Metropolis being the first, both directed by Fritz Lang. The latter is still relevant to this day, and Dr. Mabuse the Gambler maybe as well. I've just never seen it.
Fritz Lang was such an incredible artist and director that I think pretty much all of his films will remain eternally timeless and relevant.
Oh, I think so too, especially when we continue to be engaged in a class war one way or the other. And right now it's more of a class Cold War. As long as there are workers being exploited, Metropolis is going to be relevant. Yeah, and I mean, we're practically living in a less stylistic version of Metropolis at this point.
Well, also, I mean, we have a very yellow journalistic society too, so that doesn't help.
No, that's very true too. So dystopian film acts not only as a mirror of the present, but a warning of what's to come. Beware the dystopian film, my friends, for it will one day be our lives. Yada-da-da-da-da.
Wait, let's try that again. Ominous. Yada-da-da-da-da.
Boo!
I've always had a fascination with really good dystopian horror.
Me too, just the genre in general. Like, even when you look at stuff that nobody likes, like Johnny Mnemonic. Mm-hmm. It's not really horror, but dystopian movies tend to be worlds I want to live in. As long as it's not these, like...
You're the only person.
Yeah, maybe. I've just always really liked the idea of these giant, towering corporate government monsters on the horizon and these small groups of lower class people rising up to fight them, that kind of thing. But in the horror version of these movies, it always happens in the background, so I'm always sort of trying to see what's just beyond the movie.
It feels like there's always a little bit more depth in a dystopian horror film because it really does, like you said, it goes beyond the basic storyline. There's a story before the story.
Mm-hmm.
And generally a story after, unless it's the absolute end of the world, which some movies do end up with. I would name a few, but some of those are going to be in my Stephen Pre-Memorial Death Game.
Oh, yeah. We wouldn't want to...
Keep my lips sealed for that one.
So my only problem with the dystopian genre is the last few years and the whole teen dystopian drama.
Yeah, I can't get behind it, really.
No, I mean, you can throw some of it into horror, too, I guess. Like, there were unknown terrors in the maze in Maze Runner, I guess. I don't know. It's all terrible, though.
Yeah, I feel like these movies you're referring to are just this generation's beach films.
You're not wrong. That's true. I mean, there have been some okay, like the 100 is pretty good, although I'm straying way into science fiction. I'm getting further away from horror, so.
They meet in so many places. It's harder to say that fantasy and horror meet in quite as many places as sci-fi and horror, because sci-fi doesn't often have an optimistic viewpoint.
Oh, no, that's very true.
Not in the main storyline at all.
And the alien universe is a dystopian society as well. Weyland-Yutani at that point controls the entire planet. Or the entire universe, I'm sorry, the entire galaxy. I don't think we've actually left the universe in Alien.
Yeah, I will say that it is a crime that Shade's Children, which is a young teen novel, has not been adapted for the screen, given how popular these teen dystopian horror films have become in the last decade.
I don't know that one.
Oh, it's so good. It's basically one day, suddenly all the adults in the world disappear, and everyone under the age of 18 is just the only people left. And then these alien overlords come down and enslave all of the children. And then as they get older, their brain muscles are harvested for these robot monsters. It's great. It's fantastic.
Huh. That sounds kind of cool. So do they use the brain muscle or do they like eat it? Is it their fuel?
They use it. If you hack into the robot, you can almost tap into the memories of the actual person suffering inside it.
Oh, okay. Wow. That's dark. Awesome.
Really dark and awesome. And written for teenagers, so... Anyway, is there anything else you have left to discuss about the topic before we move on to the news section of the episode?
I don't believe so.
All right, then. Without further ado, it's time for horror news. All right, so Jason Blum has confirmed that John Carpenter will be scoring the new Halloween. It's looking better and better, guys. I really don't want my hopes dashed painfully against the wall.
I'm pretty hyped for it. I think I might have said this before, but I really, really like Danny McBride, and I like that he's moving a little bit away from comedy into different stuff, because I really do think he's a good actor. I'm really excited to see him in this, and to see he had a hand in writing it too, so I'm sort of stoked to see what he did with it.
Yeah, I know this sounds a little sort of superior. It sounds a little bit better than now, but I really do think that actors and artists who thrive in a comedy setting tend to be more flexible when it comes to switching over to drama. And the reverse, it can't always really be said.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think a lot of comedians have more of a wellspring of emotion to tap into as well. Comedians are a damaged bunch.
I could say Bruce Campbell is pretty damaged. I absolutely adore him. I am also very sad that he has stated that he has officially retired as Ash because the show was canceled.
I feel like if there was another movie, he'd come back. I think that he's just real mad at Starz. I'm real mad at Starz.
What can you do? Starz has never been a really reliable network.
I don't know. It really put all of its chips in Spartacus. It did, like, even when the main character died, it didn't let Spartacus die.
Yeah, it's like everyone is freaking out about this epic show based around 3 cult classic films, and we're going to cancel it. I mean, I get the feeling it was running dry anyway, so maybe this is a good place to end it.
I actually haven't seen any of the 3rd season yet. When I found out it was canceled, I just wanted to wait and binge it all.
Well, I think in honor of Ash, we should give a 21 boomstick salute.
My guns are on the other side of the room. Welcome to Western Pennsylvania, everyone.
Have you seen Killer Pinata?
I have not.
Well, Killer Pinata is working on a sequel. Well, the people who made it, Angry Mule Productions, are working on a sequel. But they need your help, guys, if you want to invest in it. Now, as high-tech as it sounds, Killer Pinata is really just about moving killer pinatas. Most of it is them being drug on a string. But it's fun. That's all I have to say about it. Check out Kickstarter, Killer Pinata 2.
How much are they asking for? Do you remember?
They have a $35,000 goal. They have reached $3,881 thus far. They also have a little bit part from Ron Jeremy featured in the film.
He is looking old. I just saw a random interview with him on YouTube. I ended up in the weird part, and yeah, that guy is...
Dude, he went from looking young in the 70s to looking old after that immediately.
Yeah, he really did. And I think he might be half, like, I can't tell if he seems like he's going half crazy or not, or if, like... He reminds me of... I can't get too specific here. He reminds me of this kid's dad I know, and the kid's dad kind of lost his mind. So I'm not sure if I'm confusing Ron Jeremy and this kid's dad.
It's hard to tell if he's eccentric or has developing, like, pre-dementia.
Yeah, that's possible too.
I hope someday people can say that about me.
Well, we can say it now if you want. So, are you going to break the Tremors news, or were you going to talk about that? Is it too soon to talk about that?
Well, this morning I was browsing through some articles, and they did leak the trailer for the film that unfortunately will not be.
Yeah, I watched it, and it was perfect. I'm real sad.
Series, yeah. Oh, it's such a shame.
I thought that, what was the other guy's name that wasn't Kevin Bacon? Like his BFF. I can't remember that. I keep wanting to say Treat Williams, but that is not Treat Williams.
That would be really weird if it was Treat Williams. Can you imagine Kevin Bacon and Treat Williams?
Oh, the charisma.
Fred Ward.
Fred Ward, that's right. Yeah, I for some reason thought he was in it too. I don't know. But yeah, I'm really sad that this is gone, especially now that I've seen the trailer. It looked really good. I'm hoping the pilot leaks, though, at least. I'm sure it will.
I hope so, too. Tremors is just one of those things that everyone has watched, and it's a little under the radar, but I don't know one person who has anything bad to say about it.
Mm-hmm. I bought it when you and I first met, I think, like pre-podcast, when I first jumped into the horror channel. There was some Tremors conversation. It was either in there or it was on your 80s horror Reddit. It reminded me how good it was, so I immediately ordered it, bought it, and it's still in its shrink wrap sitting on my Blu-ray shelf.
I was actually really lucky. I was at Walmart, and in their $3 movie bin section, they had the Blu-ray of Tremors.
Oh, that's awesome. I think I got it for like $8 or something. It wasn't bad.
Yeah, we're the kind of losers who still collect physical films.
Yeah. I'm, aside from my horror pack stuff, I'm pretty picky about it, but yeah, I will always collect video games and movies. I will always have physical copies of those things.
I think pretty soon I'll probably be buying the Toxic Avenger films in honor of John Altamura, who was in part 2 and 3 as Toxie.
Has his cause of death been released yet?
It was a heart attack.
There is a Swamp Thing TV series in the works. It's going to be released on DC's digital service, which, if it's Swamp Thing, and if I find out they're concentrating more on Alan Moore's, I don't want to call it a reboot, because it just continues on. If they, how do I say this? Too much.
If they don't do homage to the original.
No, the original is what I'd like to avoid. The original Swamp Thing is like bad, cheesy, it's everything wrong with comic books. But then as soon as Alan Moore steps in, it gets really good, and that's when like the green comes into play and Swamp Thing becomes much more interesting and philosophical instead of just tree-looking hero. You know what I mean? So if they concentrate on the good Swamp Thing material, which I'm sure they will, I will pay for whatever this digital platform is, and I will watch the hell out of it.
Yeah, DC's really digging if they're working on Swamp Thing. I feel like they're really behind in the film game, and I kind of want them to get ahead, because in my childhood, I didn't really watch X-Men or Spider-Man that much. I wasn't into them. I watched Superman, Batman, and the Super Friends.
Yeah, I mean, they're behind on the film game, but they're killing it on TV. Like, I just finished Black Lightning. It was great. I'm a season behind on all the other ones, but they've all been at least pretty good, if not great.
True. The Flash one has been really popular. Yeah,
and it's been good. It's a little too mopey sometimes for my taste, but it's still really good. Yeah. So James Wan is attached to this Swamp Thing series as well, which means he's going to bring in the sort of horror aspects that is required. He was also attached to Constantine, which I loved.
Constantine is like a running cigarette ad.
Now they actually, did you watch all of it?
Not in a while.
Oh, okay, because I thought they were pretty good with him not smoking on screen. Like, there were a couple episodes towards the end where he did, but it was mostly him throwing cigarettes away. You're thinking of movie, aren't you?
The movie, yes.
Oh, yeah, that was totally a cigarette smoking ad, yeah. So yeah, James Wan was involved in scary movies too. I want to say Insidious.
You need to do your research for this.
No, it's right here. Yeah. So yeah, I think James Wan attached to the Swamp Thing. I mean, this is a guy who directed Saw, he directed The Conjuring and Insidious. I think he can really bring the horror aspects of the Swamp Thing out and make it really, really good. I have really high hopes. If this thing actually gets made, I think it's going to be pretty good.
I hope it is. I really hope it is.
Yeah, me too. But it's going to be. It's the Swamp Thing. And to be honest, I actually like the old TV show. I like both of the movies. Like, if I'm being honest, I'm not sure that anything with the Swamp Thing attached to it is something I am capable of hating.
I feel almost the same way about Freddy Krueger, except for the remake.
Yeah, the remake's a little rough.
There may be a Tales from the Hood sequel in the works. That's...
Once again, we can be knee-deep in the shit. Sorry, I love that movie.
I feel like it's incredibly dated, and people are making it into a bigger deal now than probably it's worth making into.
Oh, it's super dated.
It was under the radar when it was released. But I enjoy some of the shows. I really like some of the stories. I really like the one with the stepfather the most. That's my favorite one.
Yeah, the stepfather one was good. I really like the Crazy K one as well, because Crazy K at the end of it didn't learn anything. Like, there was no moral to his story. He just died screaming, "I don't give a fuck," and I loved it.
You just love characters who say I
just really like characters that are so into who they are, whether it's terrible or not, that they're not willing to change. Like, I just like stubborn characters, and Crazy K is super stubborn.
With that being said, characters dying because of their own faults and not giving a shit, apparently. Are you ready for the Stephen Pre-Memorial Guess That Death game?
I believe I am.
All right. So last time Jonathan won,
Jonathan destroyed us.
Oh my gosh, we kind of suck at this game.
Yeah, it's a terrible game.
That being said, I think I've gone first a few too many times. I'm going to let you go this time, Corey.
I feel like that was you low-key making fun of me. All right. I will go first. So I tried, listeners, very hard to pull these out of my brain instead of, like, looking up clips on YouTube and stuff. So there's a slim chance some of these aren't even real, and I just pulled them out of this broken place in my brain that mixes things up. But I think we're good.
So there's a chance he's setting me up for failure.
Yeah, there's a chance I accidentally cheated, but I swear to God it's accidental.
Yeah,
All right.
This time.
So number 1 is, I wonder if it was part of their training to tear a piece of their human face off to expose their lizard skin as they die.
Oh man, that sounds familiar. I can, like, picture that happening. Like, is there wailing?
Is there wailing?
Yeah.
Like lamentations or like...
Yes, of the women.
The animals. No.
Okay, do you have a clue for me?
Magical child.
What? Magical child? It's not... What? A magical child?
Yes.
Not the golden child, is it? Because I don't remember that.
No. It's that terrible trope where, like, at the end, a magical child comes in and fixes everything.
So, sort of like Deus Ex Machina, but with a clever pun relating to kids, if I could think of one.
Exactly.
Nope, I am stumped.
Do you give up?
Did I ask for a clue yet?
Yes, magical child, remember?
Oh, that's a shitty clue. Yeah, I give up.
Okay. It was V, the original series.
Oh, dang, I would not have gotten that.
Yeah.
I haven't actually watched it. Even though I know I love Robert Englund, but I still haven't watched it.
Yeah, super young Robert Englund's in it.
We need to just, like, power through that show and do a multiple part episode about it one of these
Dude,
days.
I will do that whenever you want. I love the original V series. I grew up on that.
Yeah, that could be fun. All right, so Corey won. So, what's a worse fate? Living underground with a bunch of rapist mutants, or getting ground up into a nice blood cocktail?
There's no way it's what I think it is. Give me a clue.
Angus Scrim.
Oh, God. When you said underground, I immediately went to A Boy and His Dog, but that's not what it is.
No, because I used A Boy and His Dog in another episode.
Mm-hmm. I know this one, too. Like, I can see it. I was
so tempted to use it for this game, too. I was like,
yeah, so was I.
It out.
Oh, man. I'm going to be so pissed when you tell me what this is, but I give up.
Mind Warp.
Oh, I knew it. Bruce Campbell's in that, too.
I was like, how can I phrase this to where it's really obvious and not cheating, but so crazy that it just throws you for a loop?
I mean, in my defense,
movie,
I probably haven't seen Mind Warp for 20 years.
You need to rewatch it. It still holds up as a fun film.
When I was researching my movie, Richard Stanley kept talking about Mind Warp and Wolfen and reminding me of all these movies I need to watch again.
I can't get through Wolfen. I can't stand that movie.
I don't think I've ever tried it.
Oh,
I might have.
Dry. It's dry. It's not a bad movie. It's just really dry.
Okay.
So we are 1 for 1.
Yes. All right, this one I feel like might be kind of easy. So, you ready?
I am, sir.
Sucks to be sent back in time just to be shot in the face.
The 12 Monkeys?
Final answer?
Yes.
No, Looper.
Oh, I'm sorry. That was one of the monsters. I still haven't gotten an exterminator in here.
Oh, they're still there?
Mm-hmm. Really wish I'd studied my prime numbers better in high school, or at least kept the hatch door open. Now I'm falling to pieces.
Repeat it.
I really wish I'd studied my prime numbers better in high school, or at least kept the hatch door open. Now I'm falling to pieces. I was also singing that song when I was typing this out.
Yeah, now it's stuck in my head. But you're not talking about the song, right? The song doesn't factor in?
It's not a dystopian horror film. But it would be great in a soundtrack for one, don't you think?
Oh, for sure. Hatch door. Clue me, friend.
Okay, so since my clue is kind of vague, I decided to give you a 2-in-1 clue.
All right.
It's a Canadian horror, and it has Julian Richings.
I have no idea who Julian Richings is. I'm sure I do, but...
Yeah. He's one of those like character actors who you see in a lot of things, but you don't remember him specifically.
Huh. Now all
I'm
that I
sorry,
can see,
Julian, if you're listening to this. I remember you.
all that I can see now is Julian Sands.
Julian Sands is amazing.
Yes, I love him. And I give up.
Cube. So that's 2 and 2, right? We're tied?
Is it the dude from Forever Night? Is that who he is?
Julian Richings?
Yeah.
I mean, this was his death scene in the movie. He's in, like, The Wrong Turn and Percy Jackson and The Witch and, like, he's in a lot of stuff.
Oh, I know who you're talking about. Yeah. No, it's not the guy from Forever Night, but I know who you're talking about. All right, my turn. Sometimes, Maddie, when you die, a bunch of PlayStations will help transfer your consciousness into a robot body and you can live happily ever after.
Shoot, that's not that Johnny Depp movie, is it?
No.
Ascension or something?
No.
Can you give me a clue?
South African rappers. I can sing a little too if you want. I am your butterfly. I need your protection. Be my samurai.
As much as I... Oh, I am your little... I remember that song. You had better not auto-tune that.
I'll turn it into a duet, don't worry.
I have no idea.
Chappie.
Oh, man, that's a terrible movie.
I love it. But I really, really like The Emperor.
I liked District 9? That was called?
District 9 is really the only good movie he did, but Chappie was like my feel-good movie of the year.
Well,
and I really like Die Antwoord.
Well, I'm about to give you the game here, because this was, without a doubt, the easiest clue of my whole game, and I'm a little ashamed of myself, but I couldn't think of anything. I love drugs and premarital sex. That's the clue. I'm not just saying that I enjoy that.
I assumed as much. And this is another one that's like triggering neurons in my brain, but they're not telling me anything. Give me a clue.
David Cronenberg.
Jason X.
Oh, I hate you, yes.
I think that's the first time I've got one right in like a month and a half. All right, so I have one more, and then I have my special tiebreaker.
That's weird, because you should be on your 4th one now.
Yeah, that's what I mean. One more, and then my tiebreaker.
Oh, so all 5.
Oh, I did it again, Maddie. I thought we only did 3 when we do 5.
Oh my god.
It's okay. I'll make some up. Well, not make some up. I'll pull some more out of my brain. Okay. It's best not to be found by hungry vampire soldiers while tied to a chair in an elevator.
Oh man, I know.
I thought I was handing this one to you.
I know what movie you're talking about. Oh, but it's such a bad movie. I don't remember what it's called.
It is pretty awful.
Oh, that's the one where, like, at the end, the vampire bites the guy who's been cured, and then he's cured, and then 2 vampires bite him, and it spreads out in a wave. Oh, Daybreakers?
Ah, yeah, you got it.
Sweet, all right, we're tied.
No, we're not.
How are we not tied?
Because I got one. I have 4, you have 3.
Too. I just got one, though.
Wait, did I screw something up?
Yes, you did.
Okay, 4-4. You don't even need... I'm sure I screwed something up.
Okay.
All right, we're tied.
Somehow this renewal left me thinking about Charlie and the Chocolate Factory.
Clue.
Farrah Fawcett.
The only movie I know about it is Barbarella, but there's no way.
That's not Farrah Fawcett. That's
Jane Fonda.
Yeah,
I have no idea.
Boobarella is Pam Anderson.
Is there a Boobarella?
It was a very short-lived animated series where she was a superhero. She was the story goes as she was a stripper late at night and a superhero even later at night.
Oh, I vaguely remember. That was called Boobarella?
I believe so, yeah.
Huh. All right, so that's a point for you. All right.
Oh,
so,
did you want the answer to this one?
Oh, yeah, I do.
Logan's Run.
Oh, shit, I knew that too. I just designed a set last year for a dance version of Logan's Run set to the music of Genesis.
Jesus.
It was actually kind of cool. It was kind of cool. All right, so this is the last one I actually have prepared, so I'm going to have to reach into my brain after this. All right. Stupid kid, you just got tricked into committing genocide.
Clue.
Harrison Ford.
1984.
Final answer?
Yes.
No, Ender's Game.
Oh, darn. Grr. These crackers taste funny to you? I think I'd rather watch a nature montage than eat these.
Crackers, nature... The Island?
Mm-mm. Do you want a clue?
Yes.
Edward G. Robinson.
Fuck, I have no idea. Yeah, I don't know.
Soylent Green.
Ah! How?
Oh.
Why, God? Oh, wait, I got one. So you're winning.
Yeah. I'm one ahead.
Yes.
Did you want to throw out your crazy question, or?
No, I'm trying to make one up now. I'm out of actual questions.
I tried to be nice. I didn't throw any Dark City questions in because I knew you haven't seen it.
I've seen Dark City.
Oh, I thought you hadn't.
No. I just will never, ever ask a question from Dark City because I know how much you like it.
I do love that movie. In fact, I have a fan fiction.
Of course you do. All right, so this one might be easy, but it's unfortunate when car chases conclude in blown up faces. It rhymed, too.
Not one of the Mad Max films, is it?
No.
Robo.
That's getting auto-tuned for sure.
I don't know. A RoboCop 2?
No, would you like a clue?
Yes.
Julianne Moore? Man, I've drank too much tonight. My clues are getting so easy.
Tron?
No.
I know what you're going to say. How is Tron dystopian? Well, fuck you.
No, it's very dystopian, you're right, but Julianne Moore's not in Tron.
Well, I haven't seen Tron.
Then what's even worse? It was Children of Men.
Oh. I haven't seen Children of Men.
All right, so we need a tiebreaker question. Too easy. Terminator's not dystopian.
It kind of is later in the series. That part of it is. It's about a dystopian future being prevented and then not being prevented because retcon.
No, that's apocalyptic. There was
People
never
are still alive. It's not the end of the world. Society has been restructured. That's technically dystopian.
Yeah, but an apocalypse, like, you're living in an apocalypse. Nobody's living anymore after the apocalypse.
I feel like if there's no demons, it's not an apocalypse.
No, that's not how that works.
Yeah, that's the thing. Dystopian horror so often focuses on an individual character that you rarely get a lot of death counts until the very end.
Yeah.
It's psychology.
All right. Let me think of that death, how that goes. Smoking in a sea of gasoline.
Oh, RoboCop.
No.
What? Oh, that was Toxic Waste.
Mm-hmm.
Go on.
Smoking in a sea of gasoline will never end well. In fact, it will often end in fire.
Was that Hardware?
No. I feel like you're just saying dystopian movies in the hopes that you get one right.
I am. I give up.
Waterworld.
Oh, yeah, I wouldn't have gotten that one.
Yeah, I win.
That's a 2,000-hour movie.
That's what I get, like, finally my love for Kevin Costner's Apocalypse films pay off. I love Waterworld, and I love The Postman, and I don't care what anybody says.
What about Silver Spoons?
The sitcom?
Oh, you know what? I'm thinking of the other one with the golfing.
Field of... No, that's baseball.
That's baseball.
Oh, our nerd is showing, dude.
What is that one called?
I know what you're talking about. Not Teed Off. That's a bad pun.
That's like an Adam Sandler kind of movie title.
Yeah, because he's like a bad boy golfer, and there's another bad boy golfer. No.
Sandler.
I can't believe we're wasting time talking about Kevin Costner on a horror podcast.
You know, Open Range is a really good movie. People forget about that one.
I don't think I've seen it.
Oh, you should. It's a really underrated Western. I also loved him in Wyatt Earp.
Oh, yeah, he was great in Wyatt Earp.
Bull Durham. He was a baseball player in that one, too.
Oh, Bull Durham. That's the one I was thinking of. Not the golf. Tin Cup. Yeah, Tin Cup. There you go. All right.
Oh, my God.
The tyranny of Kevin Costner has ended, ladies and gentlemen. We are back on topic, and I believe it is time for the movies.
Yes, because Corey won.
Woo!
He won because he had an extra question he had to look up.
Hey, I didn't look up any of the other ones. That's pretty good for my brain.
So the first film we decided to talk about today, for my film, I decided to pick some Ozploitation. Turkey Shoot from 1982. Before I get into this, I picked this movie because I had not seen it, and I had heard it was one of those great overlooked gems of sort of sci-fi, basically. Sci-fi action. So I decided to finally commit myself to watching it. It is, how to describe this? It's The Most Dangerous Game meets Logan's Run with just a hint of The Great Escape, but only a hint.
And some Rambo.
A little bit of Rambo, I'm not going to lie. In the not-so-distant future, or past, since this was made in 1982, deviant behavior is illegal. And this refers to just about anything the authorities don't like. Those caught breaking the law or getting on someone's bad side are sent to concentration camps, where they are tortured and re-educated. The manager of one particular camp, Charles Thatcher, played by Michael Craig, actor and screenwriter, decides to gather his fellow evil friends and play a little game with several of the inmates, including Chris Walters and Paul Anders, played respectively by the gorgeous Olivia Hussey that every theater-minded boy in high school probably hit puberty when they found out about her watching Romeo and Juliet, and Steve Railsback from Dallas. He played both Charles Manson in the miniseries Helter Skelter.
Which is great.
Yeah, exactly. He also played Ed Gein in Light of the Moon.
Oh, that's right, he did. I forgot about that.
An innocent, a jaded prostitute, and a revolutionary. It's a turkey shoot in the woods, and any who manage to survive get to go free. Unless, of course, they've got plans of their own.
I think you meant to say, turkey shoot!
Tacky shades! Is that better?
It's something. I'm sorry, continue with your turkey shoot discussion.
Paul Anders was also in Life Force. Oh, and Rita Daniels, who is the prostitute in air quotes because it's never confirmed what she actually did, was played by Linda Stoner, who was a major sex symbol. She was actually a character in Prisoner. She got lynched. One thing before I get into anything else is that Olivia Hussey, who plays the young girl in this, the love interest, and that's about it. She was just as gorgeous as she was in Romeo and Juliet, but not quite as dynamic.
She was flat as hell in this.
They could have put so much more into her character. And reading notes about her, apparently she hated her whole experience with this film, too. And even Linda Stoner didn't much like it either. She was told she wouldn't have to do any nudity in this film, and then she was pressured into it when she had been specifically told out and out beforehand that she would not. And afterwards, it's one of her greatest regrets is that she agreed to that.
I don't blame her at all. I don't blame either of them at all. This movie was the only, quote, strong woman in this film was a psychotic serial killer lady who designed weapons for some unseen war. I can only imagine the attitude towards them on set.
Yeah.
If it was even remotely reflected by the attitude towards them in the film.
Speaking of psycho bitches, Jennifer, the evil lady you're talking to, played by Carmen Duncan, would have fit right into an episode of Dynasty, from her makeup to her clothes to her behavior, everything. Was Hunger Games inspired by her makeup in this film?
I think that Hunger Games was just inspired by the 80s.
Well, the only other thing I could really find about her of major note was that she was in a lot of TV in the 70s and 80s, and she won an award for Harlequin.
I don't know it.
Yeah, apparently it was a good movie. That's pretty much all I could find about it. We'll have to probably explore it at some point. But, honestly, my favorite part about this movie, my absolute favorite part, was the fertility idol chess set that the villains were playing in the beginning of the movie.
Yeah, I have a note on that too. That was the biggest chess set I have ever seen in my life.
Oh my god. It was like someone took all of the decorations off my grandparents' walls and put them on a chessboard.
So your grandparents had a bunch of fertility idols?
Well, they had a bunch of tourist things from Jamaica and stuff. So, wood masks, maybe a couple of stone idols somewhere here and there. Huh. But this isn't about my grandparents' proclivities right now, Corey. This is about
your grandparents' proclivities have oddly come up a few times.
What?
Remember, I accidentally called them swingers in that one episode, in the Little Monsters episode.
I don't know why you're calling my grandparents swingers.
I'm not doing it on purpose.
But you're certainly drawing attention to it.
I apologize.
It was the 70s. Everybody had fertility idols.
Yeah, it's probably true.
You know, I found it interesting that all the bad guys wore priest costumes. If they had any place to present themselves as religious figures to these people they were torturing.
I didn't make that connection. I can't see the costumes in my head now, but I just saw them as, like, militant-ish.
Yeah. Well, prior to the hunt in the woods, all of the major guys, except for Ritter, played by Roger Ward, who was Captain Fifi in Mad Max, and starred in over
that was Fifi!
shows and movies. Yeah, exactly. He was the only one who didn't wear a priest costume in the film.
Mm-hmm. That actually explains it. Like, as soon as he, like, put up his dukes to fight, like, I recognize that guy. Where do I know him from? Because he does the same thing in Mad Max at one point.
Probably one of the most prolific English-speaking actors ever. He was in, like I said, he was in over 1,500 shows and 50 movies.
That's insane.
Process that number. That means he probably had to, at some point, just be rattling through more than one television episode of something a day, going from studio to studio, bouncing around back and forth to ever hit that number.
Yeah, that's a busy dude.
Yeah. The character I felt the most sorry for in this, though, wasn't Olivia Hussey, Miss Plain Jane Flat character, but it was Ginger. That monkey wolf man really had it out for him.
Yeah, that was brutal. I mean, it was so perfectly brutal, too, that scene. I really liked the way they did that. Well, I guess those scenes, because,
Speaking of Monkey Wolfman, I'd like to hear your take on it first.
My take on the Monkey Wolfman?
Just how you felt when he popped up into the film out of nowhere.
I believe I have a bit on this. Okay, here's my piece, Maddie. I know you prefer I didn't curse, but Maddie, what the fuck? There's all of a sudden a wolf man in this movie. Like, it's this dystopian prison movie. You know there's an escape coming because you know there's this hunt happening. And then all of a sudden this funny-haired little fellow is like, hey, here's my wolf man. I'm gonna murder people with him. He eats people. I found him in a circus. And they rode in a tiny bulldozer together. Like a tiny bulldozer with an automatic weapon on top of it, and this funny-haired guy and a wolf man drove around in this movie and killed shit. And I wrote a little piece about the writer's room for this, too. All right, so it's very brief. Here's how I think this went. Okay. Went a little bit like this. Guys, I've got a great idea. This movie... It needs a wolf man. And then the room goes silent. Everybody looks at each other. And one solitary voice calmly says, hell yeah. And they all take a shot of cheap bourbon. That's what happened. That's how the Wolfman was created in this film.
Well, can you deny that you probably would have taken a shot of bourbon with them?
Oh, for sure. In fact, I'm going to take one now in solidarity for their decision.
I couldn't figure out why this guy reminded me of someone so much until I figured it out. He kind of made me think of like a smaller version of Andre the Giant, maybe slightly hairier.
He had
so
me.
What?
He had me thinking of somebody who played Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde at one point. I didn't look it up, but
that's a good comparison.
Yeah.
Well, I did look it up. I looked into the actor who really hasn't acted in much, unless you consider it acting, which I mean, I guess it is. But he's just called. His character's name was Alf. By the way,
Alf.
Alf
this gets better and better.
Wolfman. Yeah. Played by Steve Crusher Rackman.
Of course his middle name is Crusher. And of course he's a professional wrestler. That actually explains a lot about Ginger's death now.
And he played Donk in Crocodile Dundee.
Holy shit, that's Donk?
Yes.
Everything about this is so ridiculous and wonderful. I love Australia.
Yeah, I loved the music in this film, too, for the most part.
Yeah, for the most part. I love the synth bit in the soundtrack, but I could have done without the more orchestral, the more symphonic bits. They didn't make a whole lot of sense to me.
It was weird that they started halfway through the film doing these fun synth things that matched the theme, and then suddenly it just changed to like violins and like traditional movie music. It didn't make sense.
I think I get what they were trying to do. I think that I have a note here that says this music is hilarious. If the soundtrack to Mad Max had a baby fathered by Rambo, it would be this music. Anyway. So I think what they were going for is they wanted the bad guys, like the more militant guys that were running the prison, to have their own theme. And it feels like they wanted that to feel more, it was sort of a Japanese take on scoring a movie where they're kind of doing the opposite of the feeling they want to convey. So they have this sort of heroic, symphonic sort of thing going on. It happens again at the end. But because they didn't mix the synthesizer in with that at all, it's such a sudden and severe difference that it feels like we're watching two different movies all of a sudden, and it took me out of it.
Kind of like Wolf.
Did that happen in Wolf?
Well, no, I just think that it felt like two different movies.
Oh, okay, yeah.
You know, this one actually was originally intended as a satire. I feel like it had a good start, sort of, but the latter portion just focused too much on action. And by action, I mean running around to help that shine through. It kind of petered out a bit.
Running around and shooting machine guns.
Yeah, exactly. It was released as Escape 2000 in the US in 1983. In UK as Blood Camp Thatcher, because the bad guy in charge's name is Thatcher, but possibly also as a tongue-in-cheek opportunity to take a jab at Maggie.
That's what I thought they were doing when they named him Thatcher. It's also pretty genius that they named it Escape 2000, because this movie did remind me a little bit of Death Race 2000. It sounds like they were sort of trying to ride that train.
Critics panned it for excessive gore and poor acting. Maybe it's not the greatest film in history, but I don't think they were very fair given the many films that had come out by then, which were far worse in both respects.
Yeah.
I think at worst it was mediocre for the most part, but there were enough good moments in it to at least make it worth watching once.
I actually think there's a scene in this film that should be taught in film school for the rest of eternity. I think that I can't believe that...
Is it the toe eating, Corey?
No, it's not. It's not. That bombing scene at the end, where they very obviously blew up their entire set and just went for broke. That reminded me a whole lot. Like, you've got the napalm scene in Apocalypse Now that gets all the glory for being such a big scene in scope, when they basically did the same thing here. They also did it when they just started the brush fire and basically burned down a huge chunk of, like, Australian outback just for some background footage.
Well, you underestimate how much Olivia Hussey hated the Australian
for
fish.
sure. But that final scene, like that is just something that I feel like it should be remembered for the spectacle it is, and it's a shame that it's not.
Well, you know, there's a 2014 remake. It got even worse reviews. I haven't seen it yet, but the poster is enough to make me kind of want to give it a pass, though I'll probably explore it in the future anyway.
I'm looking that up.
Yeah, but you know, the 7 re-release of this movie is pretty legit. I might buy it. It has a lot of fantastic features. The restoration is really nice. If you watch this through Shudder, which is how I watched it, it's very crisp and it looks good. You don't expect that from sort of under-the-radar Ozploitations or any of the early 80s B movies, to be honest.
Was the title by chance changed to Elimination Game? And did it star Dominique Purcell?
I want to say yes.
Ugh, yeah, it's probably awful.
I do have to wonder, was the lesbian bit in this movie necessary? Why is that always a thing in these movies? Oh, right. Yeah, male audiences. Gotta exploit the sex as much as you can.
Male audiences, and it was still sort of... it was still very taboo back then. Just the whole way that they handled sex in this movie was insane. So they're allowed to have sex in these prisons, but if it results in a pregnancy, the baby's aborted, the woman is sterilized, and the male's castrated. Which is true torture, being trapped in prison and allowed to have sex, but essentially playing Russian roulette every time you have to do it. You can also be punished for having an STD, which is usually punishment enough as far as I'm concerned. And you can be killed for being gay in this movie. This is definitely not a dystopian society I want to live in. But this is a good example of, like, a movie reflecting the times it's in. Like, there was nothing okay about being gay back then. It's still difficult for homosexuals in Australia. They're very behind in the way they feel about a queer lifestyle. And I can only imagine it was even worse back then.
Well, I wouldn't have minded it so much because I really don't care. I'm pretty immune to these scenes at this point, but I wouldn't have minded so much if I'd at least seen it coming, you know? Jennifer, the villain, she's a sadistic woman, and she makes that clear, but she doesn't make it clear that she goes for men and women especially.
No, that's true.
They didn't do any build-up for the fact that she would totally go after a girl and be really into it. They should have at least implied that. She should have been walking through the showers at the beginning and singling people out to do something like beating them or something along those lines, or making them strip. I mean, not that I would have wanted to see a scene like that, but it would have made more sense from a character development perspective.
That's very true. You just reminded me of that scene. The fact that what happens to her happens off screen and then it focuses back on her body later actually really made me uncomfortable. It was actually a pretty successful scene for me. It leaves the brutality to your imagination, and that's often a lot worse for me. But the way they
Especially
did her
that
body...
bone. Yeah.
Yeah, and just having her lay there like that, it was horrible. Like, that really made me uncomfortable.
I think, again, having more development with that character in particular and what she did would have made the parallels to the Holocaust more obvious. Because it was clear they were trying to do that too.
And I think it would have helped. They did the whole, like, stock footage of protests turning into riots in the beginning. I think if they would have added in some footage there as well, I think that would have helped that parallel as well.
I think it would have, but then they would have had to have taken the film a lot more seriously and been a lot more respectful to the material. They couldn't have been afforded that campy room anymore.
No, you're probably right.
Yeah, and you're talking about the 70s, so a lot of the people who had gone through that, a lot more of them were alive and still horribly scarred. They were just beginning to finally open up about what they'd gone through. So many of them remained silent for so long.
That's true.
But I think if they had taken that edge and gone in that direction, it wouldn't have been such a sort of clearly a remnant of 70s style moving into the 80s. It would have been a sobering film about human brutality. It would have had more impact. You
know what impacted me the most about this film? In a dystopian society's prison, everybody has to wear generic Converse. I don't think I could live there.
Yeah, well, at least they all still have their glorious hair.
True.
Now, I was be giving them amazing hair products.
Or maybe there might be something in the Jell-O they're fed at every meal, which is pretty awesome. They get to eat Jell-O all the time. Maybe there's something in that Jell-O that makes their hair pretty, or they put that Jell-O in their hair. It could go either way. But yeah, I was super stoked to see that they were all wearing Converse until I saw the soles. I'm like, oh wait, those are generic Converse. That sucks. One
of my final points for this film actually, I feel, relates a lot more to your movie, but I'm going to say it anyway because I think it can apply to both of them. The cinematography is good. They worked well with the budget they had. That's always something I can appreciate in a movie. You are not limited by your funds, only by your ability to see the possibilities beyond the money you can throw at it. There are truly great films out there that were made with shoestrings and are today considered masterpieces, like Napoleon Dynamite, Eraserhead, Tetsuo the Iron Man, Mad Max, Clerks, and The Evil Dead, to name a few. I would say that even more so for a movie like Hardware, but I still think it has a place here. I think they did a really good job with their budget.
I think so too, and I think this movie would, if it was a little more consistent, I think it would have a little more of a place in cinema history. I just think that it was so inconsistent with what it wanted to be that it just probably turned people off.
But, it's right at home in a drive-in. I think it would feel like a better movie if we were watching it at a drive-in.
Oh, for sure. I did love that. My favorite part, other than the final bombing scene, was right before the credits roll, the final quote is, "The revolution begins with the misfits." It's an H.G. Wells quote. I thought that was awesome.
Yeah. Well, anyway, I think this is a nice foray into older stuff for new horror fans who enjoy Battle Royale or Hunger Games, but they want something a little more adult.
Or if you want a movie that's definitely better than The Pest, but has a similar plot, I think you should watch Turkey Shoot. It was only a matter of time before I worked The Pest into something.
Well, we'll see who has the last laugh, Corey. That may seem irrelevant, that statement I just made, but you just wait.
Now I'm curious.
Foreshadowing.
Dun, dun, dun.
You know, my mom told me once, you can't foreshadow real life, and I was like, watch me.
Sure you can. So my movie is Hardware, directed by Richard Stanley, who I absolutely love, and we'll talk about him a little bit more later, but not too much. Hardware stars Stacey Travis, who plays Jill, a woman who lives alone making terrible steel sculpture in a world on the brink of apocalypse.
You think it's terrible?
I hate steel sculpture.
I liked her art.
It's probably not even her art. It's probably the fact that I spent a lot of my time, and still spend a lot of my time, right outside an art building, and I have to see steel sculpture all the time, and I hate it.
I thought you were just going to say you had a crippling fear of tetanus.
No. Her occasional boyfriend, Moses, played by Dylan McDermott, and John Lynch's wonderfully cartoony character, Shades, have returned from the Zone, which is Hardware's equivalent to the Wasteland in every other movie that suffered a nuclear disaster. He wants to pick her up something special for Christmas.
Of course.
Oh, of course. As he's haggling with Alvy, the tiny pawn shop owner, he meets a zone tripper who has just returned from what I expect is an even deeper excursion into the zone than Moses and Shades went. This man shows up with the head of what they think is a new prototype maintenance drone that might have stepped on a landmine. Moses immediately purchases it and takes it home to Jill because Alvy is in the back room doing something so he can haggle with the zone tripper and give him way more money than Alvy would have. I love the term zone tripper, by the way. I love how these cyberpunky dystopian apocalypse movies have names like that. Like Zone Tripper's so cool. I can't think of any more. There's a bunch of William Gibson's really good at naming stuff as well, but it escapes me right now, so we're gonna skip it.
Clockwork Orange has some of the best slang.
Mm-hmm. The Warriors, too.
Yeah.
The Warriors, the gang names in The Warriors are awesome. Turnbull AC, stuff like that, yeah.
Is it just British people who are just good at that stuff? Is that why?
Yeah, it might be. It might just be them. Yeah. Yeah. So Mo's
the
been
Wibbly
gone...
Wobblies.
Oh, God. So Mo's been gone a long time, but after some haggling and charm, she lets him in, and they do what lovers do after they've been apart for a long time. They bone. As Mo sleeps, inspiration hits Jill, and she paints the head up like a tribute to some long-lost American flag and places it in the center of her new piece. A sort of steel spiderweb full of fried baby dolls. Again, I'm not a fan of her
stuff. I saw that,
stuff.
and I thought about your friend who's doing the artwork for us, and I thought, is she just frying these baby heads?
She could be. Actually, oh my God, you know what she is? She told me about that. She was trying to melt them together into super babies, and they just kept burning on her. So she's just got a whole bunch of tiny charred plastic babies in her house.
She needs to use a chemical sort of epoxy that can melt them without actually burning the chemicals, burning the plastic.
I'll try to mention it to her if I remember. So this gives the semi-active robot head the parts it needs to rebuild itself enough and try to murder Jill as they're both locked in her apartment alone. Mo has gone to meet Alvy, who has important information about said robot. But when Mo gets there, Alvy is obviously dead because he had a little robot hand that activated and killed him. The rest of this movie is sort of a closed-off game of cat and mouse between Jill and the Mark 13 robot. I'm actually not going to ruin this movie, I don't think, because I love it and I do want people to see it. So
this is the sort of film you really shouldn't know the ending before you see it.
Right. And the plot is okay. It's pretty standard fare for this kind of low-budget, closed-off movie. But where it truly shines is in its world-building and over-the-top characters. Shades, for example, spends the most dangerous part of the movie tripping his face off on acid.
I feel like he was the director inserting himself into the film.
Yeah, I can definitely see I can see Richard Stanley in all of these characters, actually, based on, the things I've heard about the man. At one point, Jill's disgusting, creepy, slimy, drooly stalker, who is also the dude who installed her security system, comes by and tries to save the day. It goes poorly for him, but that's okay because he's super disgusting. Seriously, prepare yourself for this character, guys.
I've got to applaud that actor. I needed a shower after I watched this movie.
The creepiest part about that is he ad-libbed most of that, Maddie. That shit came from his brain. Yeah. So this movie commits the same sin as many dystopian and post-apocalyptic films are guilty of. They build this great world full of interesting lore that we barely get to see. There's a subplot about childbirth being outlawed and those who disobey get sterilized. At one point, it's even mentioned that it's possible that these Mark 13 cyborgs that are about to go into production are the government's final solution to the overpopulation problem. Shade mentions at one point how he misses being in space and has this great monologue about wanting to die re-entering the atmosphere because it's better to die there and be spread amongst the world than to die of cancer on Earth. It's a really great monologue. The worst thing for me is the movie's best character, the Zone Tripper, who's played by Carl McCoy of one of my favorite bands of all time, The Fields of the Nephilim. We only get to see him for a few minutes. And he's such a cool character. He's this sort of post-apocalyptic cowboy with a gas mask and this robot hand. The outfit he's wearing is basically what he wore at that point in his life. Like, he was dressed like he was about to go on stage with his band.
Well, that was bolo tie. That was the day of the bolo tie.
Yeah, post-apocalyptic cowboy was a really big thing in the death rock scene back then. So I absolutely love this movie, but I love the world it lives in even more. Richard Stanley, who is so batshit crazy and awesome he deserves his own episode, said in an interview that the sequel would have opened up the world and explained a lot of this stuff. But alas, like most good things, it never saw the light of day. Although I hear the script is floating around the internet, I will absolutely be tracking it down in the near future. Most of the film's crew, including Stanley, were super new to filmmaking. Most of them came from music video production, which is why I think we've got musicians like Iggy Pop, Lemmy from Motorhead, and Carl McCoy from the Nephilim in this film. And like I said...
you can really see the music video influence.
Oh, yeah, it's all over the place. And there's something that bothers me there, too. At one point, Jill is flipping through the channels, and she gets to a Gwar video, but they're playing a Ministry song over top of it. And this wouldn't bother most people, as they wouldn't make the connection, but it drove me crazy and sort of pulled me out of the film.
Oh, my God.
Yeah. But casting musicians, I think, led to a few problems. Most notably, Lemmy, who was carrying an actual Magnum revolver and an actual bottle of scotch that he apparently finished, and then at one point pulled the revolver from its holster and accidentally dropped it into the river. I assume it was a rental because they sent divers in to find it, but as far as I can tell, it's still there to this day. And I can just picture drunk Lemmy pulling out this gun and just dropping it into a river and being like, meh, absolutely hilarious. So, Bill Paxton and Jeffrey Combs were Stanley's first choice for Shades and Moe. Bill Paxton would have played Moe. Yeah,
man,
right?
I can so see that.
Yeah, Bill Paxton would have been Moe, and Jeffrey Combs would have been Shades, but Bill was relatively unknown at the time, so Miramax and Palace never called his agent back. Jeffrey Combs didn't get the part because there's some kind of British union rule that only allowed 2 American actors in a British film at the time. I think that might be like more of a numbers game. Like, you have to have a certain amount of British actors to American actors. And I think because the film was so small that it just worked out to only 2 American actors. That makes a little more sense to me.
All right, British Hollywood, whatever you call yourselves, I think it's time to impose an American tariff. We have so many of you guys coming over to our country and taking over our movies.
It's true. You guys are taking all our movie gerbs. All of them.
And you won't let us send you the same?
Disappointing. So, for anyone interested, Stanley also directed Dust Devil, which is kind of slow, but pretty great as well. It's if you like Hardware, I think you'll like Dust Devil as well, if not maybe a little bit more. He also directed the 1996 Val Kilmer and Marlon Brando vehicle, The Island of Dr. Moreau.
He partially directed it.
He mostly directed it. And I like this version of Island of Dr. Moreau. I love that it's this crazy mess. I enjoy the film, but I enjoy the documentary. It's called Lost Soul, The Doomed Journey of Richard Stanley's Island of Dr. Moreau, even more.
Yeah, it is something else.
As far as I'm concerned, it's the second greatest film documentary of all time, next to Hearts of Darkness, about the making of Apocalypse Now. Oh, it's so good. I won't give away too much, because you guys should watch all these movies, and you should definitely watch this documentary. But he uses blood magic to get the job on Dr. Moreau. Like, he actually talks about casting blood spells to get the job. And at one point, he just runs off into the woods. It's crazy. He
and
literally
then infiltrates his own set.
Yeah. Infiltrates his own set dressed as one of the dog people.
You've got to be pretty darn crazy to out-crazy both Val Kilmer and Marlon Brando on the same damn movie.
Yeah, but I wonder if maybe, like, I've after watching Hardware, I've watched a lot of Richard Stanley interviews, and he seems a little bit off. Don't get me wrong.
He is like a slightly more he's like a talented Tommy Wiseau. Tommy Wiseau, if he had any talent whatsoever.
Maybe. And I don't know, maybe I'm a little bit biased just because I love his Fields of the Nephilim videos so much, and I don't know, but he definitely seems off, but he seems to generally have his wits about him. I wonder if Dr. Moreau was kind of the same deal for him as Apocalypse Now was for Coppola. Because Coppola went fucking crazy on that set. So did Martin Sheen. Martin Sheen almost died on that set. I wonder if dealing with Brando and dealing with the just tropical heat and dealing with Val Kilmer, I wonder if this just kind of drove him temporarily insane. And he's actually a fairly with it dude and has the potential to make these great films, but nobody will let him anymore because we all think he's the crazy Dr. Moreau guy.
Well,
I don't know.
I like him. I like him a lot. Don't
Yeah.
get me wrong. I just think he's an artist in a business world, and film is art, but it is also business, and he is not professional.
Yeah, that's very true. And I mean, that's something that I have to deal with too. I mean, I'm an artist in a professional world. I need to function. I mean, I'm an artist with working class roots, so I manage to stay fairly grounded. But I mean, I every once in a while could use a wrangler as well. I totally get it. But if I was completely focused on just the art aspect of my life, I would probably need a full-time wrangler, and maybe that's what he needs as well.
Do you have nightmares about monster people and then run away in the middle of the night and leave your car behind?
No, but I do have sleep paralysis and night terrors at 40 years old still. So that's it, folks.
Picture you're in the middle of an opera or something. They're singing, and then, hey, is that Corey wandering onto this?
Oh, luckily I don't sleepwalk anymore. I almost got lost in the woods once sleepwalking at summer camp. Yeah, it's some crazy shit. So that's it, folks. That's Hardware. Find it, watch it, love it for what it is, and cry over what it could have been.
Well, hold up. I've got
sorry.
a few things, too. One of my notes was that I like Dylan McDermott. Apparently, I felt the need to say that twice.
Oh, he's so good. He's good in everything. Like, he's one of my favorite parts of American Horror Story, too.
Yeah, and you know what? Thank you so much, Corey. I have tried to get through this movie so many times on a bootleg copy. It was not done justice. I'm really glad that this episode helped me to give this movie one more chance.
Did you buy it or did you stream it?
I streamed it. I rented it. And in HD, it is breathtakingly beautiful ugly.
Yeah,
when I say
for
beautiful
sure.
ugly, I mean like raw beauty that comes from a really well-shot, dark film. There were so many artistic choices I noted that were just really fantastic in the shots. And one of my favorite ones is a fairly minor one in the beginning of the film when they're getting into that weird cab in the water. And you see the rudder in the water, and then you see it start up, but then you see this sort of a spray of yellow ink coming off of it.
Yeah, well, Lemmy makes that. Lemmy makes the comment about how gross the Thames is now. Yeah.
Yeah, it was really awesome. That little shot, that simple shot, was like, just why would anyone want to live in a world like this?
I would.
And did you notice the stuff in the fridge? Synth milk. Lactoplasm?
Yeah, lactoplasm and synth milk. I did most of my notes for this from my head because I couldn't listen to I record my notes on my phone and then I type them up later. And I couldn't make any noise because of graduation, so I had to type it all up from my head. But yeah, I had mentioned lactoplasm and synth milk in there.
Yeah, it's like, not only do you have a weird fake version of milk, but you have two weird fake versions of milk in your fridge. Why do you need so much fake milk?
I imagine it's calcium deficiency, if you want to get technical about it. I mean, they're all probably vitamin deficient in this world, and it does say that she's living on welfare, so she's probably worse off than everybody else. So that could just be government-funded food that she's getting.
Even though you don't like her style of art, I love that, even though she's an agoraphobic, I love that she's an artist. She's the one type of person who can make or see beauty in a truly ugly world. Creation in the face of death and destruction.
Yeah, I like that too. And I liked the whole thing when she talked about trying to find organic figures in her steel art, but she wasn't able to. I thought that was a really interesting commentary on how the world was affecting her. I just really didn't like her stuff. But It's not even her stuff. I just don't like that kind of stuff. I did like the set. I thought the set design was great. Like, I thought everything looked great. I just don't like steel sculpture.
I don't really think she had the right to be upset at him for leaving her so frequently when she won't even hug him when they've just made love. And she won't even say, I love you back. She'll say, so? Maybe there's a reason he leaves.
Yeah, I thought that too, but I've seen this movie a bunch of times, so I've thought about that a few different times as well. And that could go both ways for me. It could have been that she's just kind of terrible, you know, or it could be that at one point they were actually trying to make it work, but he's just out doing his thing. And I mean, he has the right to be out doing his thing because it's obviously like helping her as well, you know, but I mean, I get it. I've done the long distance thing. It sucks, especially when your boyfriend's in space.
It just seems like every moment beyond the sex of intimacy or every attempt for intimacy on an emotional level in this film is just made by him. And she completely closes herself off. And I think that was on purpose.
I think it was on purpose too, but I think that we're probably seeing the end of their relationship because at one point we find out that Mo has been kicked out of the military. So this whole thing has been going on for a while and he's actually back permanently, but he's too prideful to tell her, you know, and he plans on going out again and keeping up this charade. So they've always obviously been at it for a while. So who knows how long she actually tried, and she just may have been a woman that gave up.
So you mentioned the pervert across the way earlier. I feel like we didn't touch on him enough. I'm sure he touched on himself plenty, but...
Well, I sort of did that on purpose because I want people to experience him. I think that he's hard to talk about. That's not me saying you shouldn't talk about him, though. I'm just...
I really only have one question, and did he ad-lib the song?
No, it's funny you should say that, because I had read just today, when I was finishing up, I read a piece about that song actually exists.
Something, wibbly wobbly girls. Na 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 na, wibbly wobbly eyes. I'm giving you some wait music while you look this up.
Oh, good idea.
Da da da, wibbly wobbly something.
So did you know this movie actually originally got an X rating? Can you believe that?
Wow.
Yeah. I assume it's mostly because of this dude.
I think it was his dialogue, yeah.
Yeah, I think so too. So this was based on the 1912 song They All Walk the Wibbly Wobbly Walk, written and composed by Paul Pelham and J.P. Long, and originally performed by the music hall comedian Mark Sheridan. None of those names mean anything to me.
Well, Mark Sheridan does.
Not to me, maybe to you. They don't sound familiar.
No, it's just Sheridan. It's a wine name. That's the only reason.
Oh, okay. I gotcha.
It doesn't. I don't know the person. Real quick, could you sing a little of that song for us, Corey, so the listeners know what to look for?
Well, I need to look up more of the lyrics.
Okay, I'll wait. Click, tappity, tappity, tap.
Oh, this is a whole thing.
You don't have to sing the whole song.
I'm not going to sing the whole song, but I am going to read. I will sing part of the chorus, but I am going to read the verse here. Now, have you ever heard about the Wibbly Wobbly Walk? Well, just in case you've not, I'll tell you on the spot. The Wibbly Wobbly Walk is just another kind of way of saying the boys are out upon their holiday. And note that half a dozen fellas out upon the spree in half a dozen minutes, they're full of jollity.
Oh, they're drunk.
Yeah, so this is apparently about drunk sailors. And they all walk the wibbly wobbly walk. And they all talk the wibbly wobbly talk. And they all wear wibbly wobbly ties. And wink at all the pretty girls with, I have no idea the tune here, with wibbly wobbly eyes. Yeah, so this song's apparently about a bunch of drunk dudes stalking ladies.
So it's appropriate.
Yeah, totally appropriate.
On a more intellectual.
Wait. Oh, gay old boys means something different back then. Never mind. The next verse starts with, at the seaside health resort, you see some gay old boys who once were fond of sport and knew the taste of port. I'm done.
On a more intellectual note, there is so much religious symbolism in this movie.
Mm-hmm. Well, Dylan McDermott was on this big Bible kick at the time. Like, it was his idea to read the Bible during his scenes and that stuff. And in fact, Mark 13, which is what they named the robot, that was an accident. Let me look up the Bible verse real quick. Okay, here it is. This is from, I'm just going to read it straight up, but this is a quote from the trivia on IMDb. The text Moe supposedly reads from the Bible, including "no flesh shall be spared," is made up. However, a phrase very similar to that quote does appear in Mark 13:20. There should no flesh be saved. Which is, I mean, that's not just similar, that's just a different way to say that. So I thought that was pretty interesting. But that was all, like, the Mark 13 was named. Dylan McDermott came in with his Bible and looked that up and found that. I thought that was pretty interesting. And that's another one of those things that only happened to Richard Stanley because he's got some weird connection to this spiritual universe thing. I don't know.
Well, they probably changed the line like that just because one person on the set was like, "Hey, what does that mean?"
Could be. Well, no, I don't think that the line existed before Dylan McDermott found it, but I think that the fact that he named the Mark 13 without even knowing that there was a related Bible verse, essentially, to not only what the robot was doing, but essentially what the world was doing to the people. Like, that just feels like something that can only happen with somebody who's a little more in tune to the weird things in the cosmos. And Richard Stanley definitely is.
Well, it wasn't just Christianity being represented in this. That was interesting that towards the end when you saw that, I'm not going to say it, but it involves the Mark 13 and some trippy lighting.
Oh, I love that scene.
Yeah, that looked very religious, but also Shades, when he's meditating on his drunken, high little experiment, he's almost sort of worshipping this image of what I believe to be Kali.
Yeah, Kali comes up a couple times.
Yeah. And she represents destruction and rebirth. So, to me, is the end of this world that they know optimistic? Or is it pessimistic? Or is it both?
I don't know. It was pretty pessimistic. Again, I think that if they would have opened this up in a sequel, we'd know more. It definitely leaves it pretty bleak with the sterilization of the masses, law passing, the Mark 13s going into mass production. Iggy Pop's radio host character says that at the end.
Oh, he was just fantastic.
Oh, he was great. And like I said, it's mentioned that the Mark 13 may be built for population control. Like, that's the whole deal, is they go out and kill people that the government deems useless.
I guess I just really wanted to read hope into the film. I always kind of do. No matter how bleak a story is, I try to read hope in some light into it.
Well, I think there is a little bit. Like, the fact that, all that Shades wants to do in the beginning of the movie is get off planet again. It sounds like he feels like there's more of a future off planet. His character is some kind of a, he works as a mechanic on like a salvage vessel or something like that. That's what him and Mo do. So who knows? There may be like some sort of nice space station out there that some people get to go to. Who knows? But it does seem to be a little bit of hope in Off-World. And it could be one of those deals, too, where, like, the Zone Trippers, it's just their world now. There's another part of the sequel, supposedly, that Jill's character, she leaves the house and wanders out into the wastes and finds this group of people that are making it work out there, and she lives with them. And of course, she's hunted by the Mark 13, and it probably all goes bad. But there are people out there existing. But it could be the whole I Am Legend thing, where it's not actually our planet anymore. It's this new sort of mutated race of wasteland wanderers. It's their planet now. Which I guess could be a rebirth.
The Zone Tripper, his mysterious qualities, how evil he kind of seemed to me, made me wonder if he was supposed to either represent the devil or one of the horsemen.
I guess he could, and I kind of thought that too. Like, I felt like he was definitely a harbinger. And I feel like he definitely knew what he was doing when he gave over that head. Yeah. And before I found out about the sequel and knew that we'd learn more about that, I think that the Zone Tripper's may be a little more grounded than that, but maybe his specific Zone Tripper isn't. Who knows? I'll let you know when I read the script.
Well, this movie really keyed me up to want to, like, go read the Tank Girl comics and, like, rewatch Cherry 2000, Circuitry Man, and Mind Warp.
Oh, for sure.
How is it that we both picked two movies from the same subgenre, dystopian horror, but they are like night and day, so completely different from each other?
That's how we roll.
And they're only 8 years apart, if you think about it.
Oh, wow, that's crazy, too. What a difference.
Yeah. Oh, I think I just heard a knock on the hatch out there. Do you want to go check on it, Corey?
No, I think you should probably get it.
Oh, hey, guys, the nuclear winter's over. One of you should open the hatch and come outside. Did you hear that? I think I heard it. Someone's talking out there.
Yeah, we should obviously do this. All this talk about hope, we should definitely open that hatch.
All right, but first, before we do that, we've got a few little things to say, don't we?
I'm sure we do.
For instance, if there are any people alive out there, check out our blog at Hallow-Holic.blogspot.com or Hallow-Holic.wordpress.com.
And if your generators still work and you can get the internet, find us on Twitter at Nowhere23 or search for Hallow-Holics Anonymous.
Also, our podcast is featured on the Podpedia. It's a Wikipedia for podcasts. So please go check it out. If you have a podcast of your own, throw it up there. Or just browse around. They could really use some support, and they're working on building their community right now.
We have to say that. I'm sorry, I've always wanted to do that during a promo. I'll try not to do it too often.
And if you want to email us and criticize Corey, you can do so at hallowholics@outlook.com.
Send help. All right. Thank you guys for listening. I'm sorry I've lost my mind a little bit.